This is WFO Radio.
Hey, everybody, we are back. We are now back, WFO, following the big 4th of July weekend. Hopefully, everyone is great. I am great. You are great. Everybody still got good. Good news. I had a great time. Hopefully you all did, celebrating the birth of our nation, watching all the great history shows, watching everything. History Channel is like on from morning to night. Had Fastlane Friday out there at Homestead. We had a good time. But now it's time to look forward. We got the NHRA's Alan Reinhart just minutes away. He is traveling from somewhere to somewhere. It's going to be great. We'll have Reinhart on. We encourage you to share the show. Big week at WFO. Matt Smith will be on Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern time. We'll hear from Matt about his big win out there in Norwalk. Thursday, still open. I got a couple of ideas what I'm going to do, though. It should be great. So stick around, be ready, get ready, hold on. We got it all coming at you. WFO Radio, Ignition even. We somehow did an on-location Ignition podcast because it had been a while since we had gotten together for the Ignition podcast, and it is up and available in our podcast archive if you've never heard that. So great stuff. If you love drag racing, you're going to love this show. Let me tell you about the people who make it possible for me to do this show. Talking about Marvin Rodak, Rodak'sCoffeeandGrills.com. Burned through a lot of Rodak's coffee this past weekend, like a lot. And it was great. Kept me motivated, kept me going, and it will keep you going too. 817-924-6821. That's Rodak'sCoffeeandGrills.com. Ask him about the Habanero Endorphin Booster hot sauce. Ask him about that, and you'll love your answer. Samtech.edu, the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. Start your education at full speed. They got blockhead, CNC programs, motorsport, EFI tuning. They're approved to train veterans under the GI Bill. So if you're looking for a career, something that will last a lifetime, you want to be happy what you're doing. All these machinist kids that I meet, they seem pretty happy and satisfied, and they're interested, and they're going places, and they know they're going to have a job. All of that is great. And you don't even have to be in racing. I know you're in racing right now because you're listening to WFO Radio. Like, who doesn't like racing and is watching WFO Radio? People who must really enjoy my witty retorts. But other than that, you're involved in motorsports. You love it. You want to make a career out of it. Check out samtech.edu. Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School, the Dragster Adventure, their newest graduate, Autumn Height. Talk a little bit about that later on. But I think it is great that Frank Hawley is educating the next generation of drag racers, maybe superstars going on to big things like Autumn Height, or people who just want to drive a dragster and find out what it's all about. Like, what is it all like to drive one of those things? People feel that about an Indy car. People feel that about a stock car. But there's places where they can do that. But a drag race car to go and maybe race your friend, the Dragster Adventure Challenge, they've got all those programs at frankhawley.com. And finally, Total Seal piston rings, from stock eliminator to Formula One and everything in between. Total Seal fits the rings. They've got a great business going because they have learned through technology how to reduce the friction inside your engine as low as is possible. We've got a new live broadcast coming up this week, another Hidden Horsepower Live. We're doing more and more of these things. So go to Total Seal on YouTube. Go to their YouTube channel and subscribe. Click the bell. There's a Facebook group called Hidden Horsepower. You can ask to join, and we will let you join, especially if you're preferred from WFO Radio. And then there's the Total Seal page. Go to all of those things. You can't miss it. Hidden Horsepower from Shaver Competition Racing Engines this week, Friday, late afternoon. It's going to be like quasi-happy hour, quasi-informative. I'm the happy hour part. Lake Speed is the informative part. And it will be great. TotalSeal.com. Check them out. If you're building an engine, like so many of you are, to go racing, like so many of you are, go to TotalSeal.com. Big thanks to the folks at Nitro Fish. Had Cruz Pedregon on last week, and people were asking about the gear. And where do I get cruise gear? Nitro Fish is the place. Get it in the trailer at the track, along with our WFO stuff. And then we've got our own WFO store, which I'm getting ready to close down, by the way. That's another story. You'll have to listen to one of the Ignition shows. Yeah. The foray back into gear distribution has been a failure. I'll tell you about that another thing. It's just you learn a lesson, and then you know the lesson for a while. And then something happens and you forget, like, yeah, why was I doing that? What was the reason? Oh, and then it resurfaces. The reason, that's right. There was a reason. So if you want to get something off the WFO store, do it fast. Do it fast. But you won't be as fast as this guy. Oh, look at him. Looking tough. The voice of the NHRA, traveling from somewhere to somewhere, Alan Reinhart. What's up, Alan? How are you?
Oh, I'm okay. It's not a bad weekend. Got through it. Now I'm grateful to be getting back into the routine, going racing again this weekend.
Going racing again this weekend, going racing again. So where are you going to be? Are you going to be in Woodburn this weekend? Where are you coming from? What's that story? 4th of July weekend. I know there's points races that you go. You do a lot of the points races. I know Fabian Brown did the one in Norwalk, and the results were Julie over Jasmine, a couple of lady racers in the final round of Top Alcohol Dragster. Imagine that. What a shock. DJ Cox over Sean Bellamere. Pete Dagnolo won comp. What about where you were? Where were you? Were you anywhere?
I was actually home this past weekend. I had enough stuff to get done around the house, still trying to get cleaned up after the fire and the other things like that. But no, this weekend, I'm actually in Indy right now. I'm in the Indianapolis airport. I've got some studio stuff I've got to do this tomorrow, and then flying out to Woodburn tomorrow night. Be there for the weekend, home for a day, and then on to Denver, and on we go.
Denver, Sonoma, Pomona, and it's a kind of a weird modified Western swing, but I'm very excited about it. And the swing is always where we learn a lot, where people bring out new stuff. And it's kind of amazing to think, but we're at that time of the year, right? Where, hey, are you going to contend for a championship? Do you think you have what it takes? You better figure it out, because after Pomona, we go to Kansas, Brainerd, Indy, countdown. It's incredible that it has moved so rapidly.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're already in the second half of the year. July, of course, marks the second half. I know that because I pay my rent at the shop every 6 months, and I have to write a big check on July 1st. But no, it's we're there, so it's time to ramp things back up.
Exactly. Trying to ramp things back up. And we've got a lot of people checking in via social media. Just want to say shout out. We're at a special time. Reinhart, you were just on a plane like minutes ago. You dropped your bag. You're doing this. Do you have to run? Do you have a connection? Or you're in Indy. You're where your destination is. You're at your final destination. So we can keep
I'm in Indy. I just got off the plane, and then if anybody that's ever flown in and out of the Indianapolis airport, one side of it is very busy and one side of it is almost like for future expansion. So I just kind of snuck down here in a corner all by myself for nobody to bother us, and fired up.
There you go. But everyone's weighing in. They're saying what's up. Looking forward to Bandemir and all kinds of good stuff. Now, Alan, I don't know how much you knew about this as a follower of WFO, but Flying Ryan Ayler had challenged me to a drag race. It was going to be tomorrow in Tampa at formerly Sunshine Dragway, a historic track. I think now it's called Showtime Dragway in Tampa. We were going to race equally prepared 5.0 Mustangs with drag radials, but there was smack talk. It was fun. I was thrilled that he wanted to race against me, obviously as a way of bringing attention to his deal, Tampa Bay Race Rentals, but it has been postponed because of the weather. Have you seen this? We're having a major weather event here in South Florida. It didn't seem encourage people to go, and for Ryan to fly into, and for me to drive over, like I would be driving through some semblance of that at some point. So we have postponed it until further notice. A bit of a bummer, but it is what it is.
I think if you're going to do a 5.0 radial thing, you need to call Kevin McKenna and borrow his car.
Let's try to slip it in there under Ryan's nose like he does. He has a red car, so we'll just get K-Max 10-second supercharged amazing machine that he won a world championship with. I like it.
If I would certainly try to hedge the bet if I was racing somebody like that.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Alan, because the thought of like how much gamesmanship is okay. Meanwhile, you're the guy who wanted to kick Angie out for having a metal spoon. And 1 week later, you're telling me I should sub a supercharged Mustang in for the regular Mustang. But I appreciate where you're
at. Let me see where the rules are. I mean, surely there's wiggle room in there somewhere.
There's always wiggle room. But see, in this case, Ryan was going to be supplying both cars. And,
and I'm sure he'll give you the good one.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. That's the elephant in the room right now. It's like, the cars, man. Of course, the cars. But we'll see. It has been temporarily postponed. And that's it. Derek saying it's sunny. Everyone saying what's up from Oklahoma. Roger Richards is out there. We've got our regular audience. And so let's move on. And as far as alcohol ranks, Norwalk, for instance, Julie, top racer, Jasmine moving in the right direction. That's a good result for her. DJ Cox, the guy is it safe to say like the guy has, I don't want to say he's arrived when he's actually been around for a while, but now they're stringing together victories all of a sudden. And that's a different thing from, getting your second win ever to winning back-to-back races.
If I'm him, I'm headed right now for Woodburn. If when you start winning, keep going, because everybody knows the string doesn't last forever. So you might as well just keep riding it until you can.
Yeah, I love that idea, and it's great to see new players emerge. And the fact that he beats Bellemere in the final now, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, we got a great wide open championship battle among great cars. Bellemere, of course, Doug Gordon, DJ now, and there will be others before it is all said and done. Had Cruz Pedregon on the show last week on Thursday, gave us lots of great information about the cockpit of his race car, and it's kind of interesting that Cruz and John Force both using new talent and perspectives to adjust the cockpit of their race cars to go out there and be successful, and was just thrilled with his victory out there in Norwalk, but feels very confident. Like he's in a new spot somewhere he hasn't been in a while.
Well, I think that you kind of get into and I don't mean this like it's probably going to sound, but I think you kind of get into the old dog, new tricks thing, when you've got guys like that they've been doing it forever and they've had success before, and it's kind of tough to convince them that, look, there's a better way to do it now. We've come up with, whether it's new parts, new pieces, new thoughts, new something, but you need to adjust and stay with the times. And once, I don't know, I think it's a little bit like how long I kicked and screamed and fought about getting a smartphone, and then once you get it, you go, wow, this is brilliant. Does everybody know about this? You're the only one who didn't. And so, sometimes you just need somebody to come in and twist your arm to get you to try those things. Cruz, I do believe Cruz was the last guy out there that didn't have a chin strap. And, well, I've never needed it. Why would I need it now? And then you put one on and go, holy crap, I can see. Well, that's why. Things have changed, and you've got to make other adjustments with it. I certainly don't think that's going to be Cruz's last trip to the winner's circle this year. But we talked about it from the beginning of the year. Like, okay, how long is it going to take? Because we knew it was inevitable. And I think you're going to see more of that. But no, I think that, you just have to keep moving, and you have to keep understanding that there's something else out there. There's something different out there. There's something new out there. How many guys have jumped on the podcast bandwagon in the last 2 years? And you did it, 12 years ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
You got to realize that, hey, look, this is a new thing. This is going to be something, and I need to get involved with it sooner, not later. And I think that's the reason that, your show is as big as it is, and some of the others are. I think it's also interesting when you see guys, oh, yeah, we're going to do a podcast. It's going to be great. And then 3 weeks later, it's like, wow, that's a lot of work. No kidding.
No kidding. Well, exactly. It's not even the work as much as it is the dedication, because I have that problem with going to the gym. Right? Like I can equate it to something else. Look at these people with their amazing bodies. How do they do it? Well, they go to work and they're there all the time, and they're doing it all the time, and they're worried about it's like, man, I would kill it if I had a body like that. Except I'm not willing to do that. And all I eat is cheese and drink alcohol and beer and love it too. By the way, no remorse. But that's the thing, dedication. You got to get up. You got to do it. Reached out to Matt Smith today, trying to get him on the show tomorrow. He'll be on Thursday. I got a plan for that. Like it's a considerable amount of work, but it's been worth it. Look at this. I wouldn't be working with you guys at the NHRA. No chance, if not for this show. Because you obviously, the guy knows the names. He knows the sport. Bob Fry goes, hey, listen, you can obviously string some sentences together, and the players. I think we can figure out the rest. So you gotta have dedication to whatever it is, but also be willing. And that's what started this, to try stuff you've never tried before. Like to try like this, the StreamYard, the pandemic happened. Let me try this. Let's do one. First one totally stunk. Second one got better. And now we do it every day, every time. And it's working for us.
Yeah, but you got to be willing to adapt, and you got to be willing to change it. And I think, to circle back to where we started, that, when you talk about guys like Cruz and guys like John that have been doing it for so long and have had success in the past, it's difficult sometimes to convince somebody like that you need to make a change. You had success in the past, but you're not having quite so much success now, are you? And maybe it's time to make, some of those changes. We've seen over the years, guys that, you get into a slump, and then all of a sudden something wakes you up, and it's like, what did you discover? I discovered that something everybody else already knew. We need to make some of these changes. There's a reason that everybody else has done it.
Well, exactly. And then the other side of the coin comes around. It's like, wow, trying new stuff works. Let's try all kinds of new stuff. And then you get lost. There it is.
And then you're a pro stock racer. You know, it's like what you were talking about a minute ago. Where it's like, oh, I remember now why I didn't do this. I remember now why this failed before. I remember now, you know, when you're a pro stock racer, it's like, okay, hey, I got an idea. We've tried that 50 times and it's never worked. Let's try it again.
Yes. And sometimes it does, though, for those guys. Sometimes it does.
Yeah, but you know, when other things have changed, and that's what makes you think that, okay, maybe now's the time that idea that's never worked before will work, because some of the other things have changed, and you just kind of keep growing and learning and until you get smart and take whatever that thing is and throw it completely away and erase it from your memory banks and then get on with life.
Well, exactly. So let's, as we begin the preview of the Western Swing, which is super exciting, you know, we're going to try to get Bobby Lagana on. We're to the point where Steve is winning so many races now that we're going to get him, you know, pinch hit guests for Steve's winter views because he's won. I'm looking at the bottom half of the point standings, though, where you got Justin Ashley in 6th. You got Josh Hart in 10th. You got Clay Milliken, Joe Morrison, and Doug Foley kind of on the outside. I don't know that, you know, Joe and Doug, they're not full schedule guys. Clay is. So it looks like at the end of it all, we're going to have one driver not make the top 10 who wants to make the top 10. And the question is, who's it going to be? Because you got, you know, Clay, who will hopefully be back in the car, ASAP, that whole points thing we talked about last week, you know, dinging him up a little bit. Josh Hart, that team, you know, do we know how many races they're going to run? They seem to be able to put together some sponsorship, and they're good every time they go. So it's just a matter of, do they want to go? You got Mike Salinas and Leah and Doug Coletta, 7, 8, 9. Doug, Leah, Salinas, all good cars. And they find themselves in a bit of a precarious situation, at least as of now, headed into the 3-race Western Swing.
Yeah. You know, it'll be interesting to see which one of those kind of snaps out of it, I guess, for lack of a better term. You know, for Doug, they've just been snake bit all year. You know, they've lost enough points to oil downs that they'd be in the top 5 if they could just have those back. You know, for Mike Salinas, has had himself a great race car, and I think even he would tell you that, you know, he needs to sharpen up his game on the starting line a little bit in order to get themselves back into contention. And you know, Leah's just, I think they need a luck transplant over there, you know, or a seance or something. You know, yeah, there's certainly been, you know, she's left a couple on the starting line, no doubt, but she's also had a really inconsistent race car. And I think it's difficult, you know, when you go to the starting line every time, like Steve Torrance does, knowing my car's going to be good, my car's going to be go fast, I don't have to worry about anything, I just have to drive it. Then you can focus on what you need to do and you get the job done. But I really believe that Leah's going to the starting line right now, almost going, okay, what's going to happen this time? You know, there have been so many times when there's just been some little thing, and the team just seems like they're out of sync over there a little bit. You know, I think they need to have the Alan Johnson meeting. You know, famously in Seattle years ago, Gary Scelzi's second year driving for Alan in what was in the Winston car, and they were just out of sync. I mean, they were, you know, the team was making mistakes. Gary wasn't driving well. Nobody was like in a very comfortable position, and they went to Seattle and they got beat, I think, first round. And Alan was pissed, and they got back to the trailer and he told everybody, he said, get inside, close the doors right now, we're having a meeting. And I talked to a couple of the guys that were just absolutely convinced that, you know, this is it. It's going to be, you know what, walk home for all I care. Just get the hell out, you guys. And it was team wide. It wasn't one person. It was team wide. Everybody just wasn't kind of clicking. And he took them all in the trailer and he closed the door and he said, look, here's the deal. You know, the chemistry's not here. We're not doing what we're supposed to do. And he said, here's what we're going to do to fix it. We need to turn the radio up. We need to start going out Friday night and having team dinner, having a few beers and having fun. It's everybody's pressing so hard. Everybody's so nervous and you're forcing yourself to make mistakes. We just need to have fun. We're not having any fun. And that's the biggest problem. So let's get back to having fun and let's go win some races. And they went to Brainerd, I believe, and won, and went to Indy and won. And, you know, all of a sudden it just got everybody back. And the reason we do this is because it's fun. And when we're having fun, we're successful. And they got away from having fun, and the success got away from them too. So they just needed to get back to that. But when it was, you know, look, we're going to turn the stereo up. We're all going to hang out and have a beer at the end of the day when the stuff's put away. We're going to go back to what we used to do when we were having fun and it was working. and it worked. And I don't know if some form of that, but it just seems like that that team over there is a little bit out of sync from top to bottom.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I always want what's best for our sport as the head storyline. And I think Leah winning a couple of races, injecting herself into the championship conversation in a meaningful way, the way Cruz did this past week, is really good for the sport. Like, they've got the whole social media attention thing down. Like, Leah's posts, her social is great. It's just she needs a car that can win, and she needs to go out there. And there's been some races where the car's let her down. There's been races where she's let the car down, but it's not over yet, right? Like, they're still in the mix here. That's why we have a countdown, to give you some time to grow and develop and find it. Now's the time to find it. So I'll be very eager to see. And it's funny that you mentioned that. You basically described the Capco team, right? Music on, always. Good time, always. Fun first, always. Total priority of the whole organization is what? We love drag racing because it's fun, and this is what we're going to do. We're paying out of our own pocket, so it better be fun or else we're going to stop, right? And look at how it has worked so well. After Norwalk, I swung by and I saw those guys. And since I had Steve on the week before and Billy on the week before, and we were talking about, Cale Hood and everything, that was the hot topic. They're like, we love this team because we all want to be here. Like, every person here is prioritizing fun first. Cale talked about going to IndyCar for 5 minutes because it wasn't fun. He came right back immediately. It was like, whoa, job. Don't want a job. I want to go and have a life that I love. Getting to that point, that's the challenge. They've got it. They're on the top of the mountain, and who's going to rival them? I guess we'll see soon enough.
Well, I think you'd have to get everybody on the same page. When Larry Dixon started driving for AJ, and I use him as an example a lot because I think he's a very good motivator, and he doesn't motivate with a stick. When he started working with Brittany, he doesn't go in there and start yelling and screaming, and he goes in there and says, "Look, here's what I need you to do. Here's the best way to accomplish that. We're going to take care of our part." And motivated her and won a championship. Larry came from an environment that, let's just say, the motivation came from different ways. And when he started working for Alan, and he was struggling a little bit, and they were I believe it was in Bristol, and Larry got beat on a hole shot, and he had a really fast car and had just been struggling a little bit driving. And he walked into Alan's coach, and in his office in the holler, and he said, "Look," he said, "if you want to fire me, just tell me. I'll get my stuff and I'll go home." And Alan said, "Fire you? What are you talking about?" He said, "You're my driver." He said, "We're still going to win the championship. We're going to be." He said, you need to get your head in your game. You just need to relax, to learn to have fun. And Larry said, "How did I do that?" And Alan said, "Spend a little more time hanging out with us." And obviously, they went on and did great things together. And but everything has to be in sync. I was talking to somebody last week, and I'm not making excuses for anybody. But I was talking to somebody last week, and they said, "Oh, wow, I can't believe Leah lost on a hole shot." I said, "Yeah, well, the time she was in the car before that, she did the burnout, and it didn't come back." When you're sitting in the car, you remember, what was it, 3 weeks ago, she qualified second or third, and the clutch didn't get charged. So the car went a foot before it knocked the tires off of it. So when you're getting in the car every time thinking, "I wonder what's going to happen now," you can't concentrate, you can't do your job. And, and it's not, I just think, everything's out of sync, whatever it is. You need to just get everybody back on the same page. But we know the brain power they've got over there. We know that the parts and pieces are all there. We know, and they just need to get everything in sync. They need to figure out a way to do that.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, here, Jim is, educated fan. He says Leah and Brittany have both been inconsistent on the tree this season. I don't know. I think Brittany's been pretty good. And we've heard from John that she's doing things away from the track to get better and better. That's all you can do, right? Is like, take responsibility for it and be as best as you can say. But what you just, like, how can you not be inconsistent when everything else is inconsistent? It's just the driver feeds off of everything else. Like you just said, if you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what the car is going to do, you've got all this extra pressure coming at you from 100 different angles, and you just don't know what's going to happen. It takes a very certain and special kind of person to be able to just go out there and perform like that. So, well, they've got a good opportunity here to do, like, what is it? 5 races in 7 weeks or something. Like, it's going to be a torrid pace. And so we'll see how they grow and deal with it.
Well, I know that they've done some testing. I know they've done some other stuff, and it's not usually something that you can snap your fingers and fix, but they just need to start, moving back in the right direction. Don's a pretty good motivator over there, and everybody that knows anything about NHRA knows how Don feels when his teams aren't competing up to what he believes they should. So hopefully they'll get it going again.
Well, exactly. But if the countdown started today, though, Steve, Antron, Billy, Brittany are the drivers that I think have shown that they could bring it for 6 races or 7 races this year. 7-race countdown. So that's going to add. I'd love to see a Doug Coletta, Leah. Salinas had that good performance up there in New England, and so he's been working on his reaction times. We'll see, but. Until you do it, you haven't done it. And that's what I said with Cruz. Like, it's inevitable, but it hasn't happened. Once it happens, you kind of enter the conversation, and he did. So, again, Top Fuel, Kings of the Sport. It'll be fun to see. But right now, Steve Torrence is the best that there is, and that story's not changing. Funny Car, on the other hand, who is the guy right now? Tasca sitting on top of the points. He made the final round against Cruz. He's had really the strongest season of anyone, but many players, multiple players, and I'm not ready to count anybody out just yet.
No, I think Funny Car might be the most wide open, maybe that and Pro Stock Motorcycle. But, you look at, obviously Bob is running very well. John is back in the mix. I mean, John right now looks more like a championship contender than he has in 5 or 6 years at least. Robert is certainly game on. Matt Hagan is not, I don't know, they just haven't woke up yet. And that he's going to be a contender, especially when we're getting the countdown time. Part of me has to wonder if they're doing a little experimenting or if they're doing something over there, just because I've seen it so many times from that team. They come out and it's like, we're running okay. We're running okay. Okay, championship time. Click. Let's go. And they seem to be able to do that. So I think he's certainly going to be a factor. Ron Capps has got himself a pretty good car right now. I keep waiting for Wilkerson to bust out, and I know I've said that for 6 weeks in a row. I'm going to be the guy that predicts rain for 40 days in a row, and then the day it rains. But see, I told you. But I just really think that they've got a car that's running really good right now. They just haven't put it all together on Sunday. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and there's a lot of good teams. The biggest problem is that the competition level is just so high.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like Wilk, those first round matchups, those tough, brutal first round matchups that knock him out early on, or you come up 1,000th or so short. It's just, it's tough. He's got to get through those. But I agree. There's going to be a time where he breaks through, or maybe there won't, right? But it would be better if he did. Better for the sport. That's why we need Alexis, we need Wilkerson, we need Cruz. We need those 3 drivers winning a race or multiple races, and then all of a sudden you've got a fundamentally different sport. Everybody's trying. It's just very, very hard. It's very challenging. I like what you had to say. And how about Terry Haddock is in the top 10 in points? Blake Alexander is on the outside looking in. Jim had some positive things to say. It feels like he's maybe sneaking up on it. Didn't you go spend a little time with Jim prior to Norwalk? Did you learn anything?
I went flying with him. I learned how to fly upside down. So, I guess I learned something. No, we didn't even talk race cars. We talked airplanes and talked just kind of life in general. And I really just went down there for part of an afternoon. He invited me to come down and go flying. And so I made the trek down to do that. But, Jim, I don't know if he's going mad scientist again. He swore he wasn't going to until at least Indy. But, his car just seems to be a tick off. It'll make a good run and then it'll smoke the tires, or something just weird out of the. It'll make a couple of decent runs in qualifying and then slow down inexplicably in round 1. So, I think that something just seems like just a little bit off. That obviously they're looking and working and trying to find it, but. You mentioned the Lexus. I think she's got a really good car out there right now as well. J.R. Todd is a guy that, 1 week comes out and looks like, oh man, they're back. And the next week they come out and it's kind of like, what happened to them? But there's a lot of really good funny cars out there right now. And that's one of the things that makes funny car fun. With Wilkerson, you're talking about the first round matchups. The thing with Tim is that No. Okay, he'll miss a little bit qualifying, and he'll qualify 12th or 13th. Okay, great. That means you got to play one of the hitters. Well, then he'll go out and have a great qualifying effort. He'll qualify 4th, and you look at the ladder and go, what the heck is that guy doing down there? I mean, he just can't get away from those big round one matchups. So I think that they're doing the right stuff. I think they just need to keep doing what they're doing. And the old story, right? If the money holds out, sooner or later your luck will change.
Yes, exactly. And for everybody out there, Alan Reinhart is not in a bar this week. He is in the airport. And Mark said, such a horrible thing. I will not say this, but I will quote him. Hey, Alan, tell those kids in the background to shut up, says Mark. What a horrible thing for you to say, Mark. What do you think, Alan? Should you do it?
I think they just got off an airplane and they're glad to be able to stretch their legs and move around a little bit. So
I agree. Yes, exactly. Come on, Mark. Lay off the kids, Mark. Exactly.
I came and hid out in like an abandoned corner of the airport, I thought, and then they pulled the plane up to the gate. So
well, we're almost done. Hey, Jalen's out there. He's got a quick question. This was brought up a few times. Talking about the shutdown area at Norwalk being short. How long should a shutdown be in 2021 where everyone has enough space to slow down if the chutes don't deploy? And I think that's kind of a moot question because it's not how we do it. There's property lines and there's restrictions that we can't control. But that being the case, like, do you have an answer to his question? Like, is there a predetermined number that is the right number?
No, and there never will be. You could make a shutdown 5 miles long if you wanted to. Now, if you're on fire and can't stop your car, do you want a 5 mile long shutdown where the safety guys can't catch you, the fire truck can't catch you, and you just stay on fire and keep going? Of course not. The difficult thing is that there's just no perfect solution for every problem. Norwalk is not the shortest by any means out there. I think part of it is kind of the way it comes uphill and then kind of goes downhill a little bit at the end. I think the perspective is strange for some people. I think I was more surprised by Drew going into the sand than I was anything else, because it's like, when's that happened before? I believe never. But the drivers, I think it just forces the drivers to pay attention. But there's no absolute positive. This is the correct distance for a shutdown area. And there's a lot of other things that are different. Denver and Vegas, for instance, Bristol are all uphill. So is it okay to be shorter if you're uphill? I would think so. But is there a mathematical formula that tells you that? When Caruso and his Pro Mod a couple of years ago had the chutes pull off and tear the brake lines off of it, would an extra 1,000 feet of shutdown have made a difference there? I mean, it might have slowed down 5 more miles an hour, but it wasn't going to make a whole lot of difference. And again, if you're on fire and you want the thing to get stopped, then the last thing you want is a shutdown that goes on forever and ever. I think I believe the longest in the country, not necessarily paved shutdown, but the longest from the starting line to where you actually have a dead stop, so to speak, is Phoenix, because you can go out in the desert, you can go all the way to Casa Grande before you hit anything, which I guess if you have parachute failure is okay, but again, if you're on fire, that's not what I want. So there's no perfect solution for every problem, and the racetracks have to deal with, as you said, kind of land restrictions and space restrictions, and what space do we have to work with, and that's what we got.
That's it. Right. And the way we're having problems with drag strips these days, like we have to deal with what we got. That's it. We got to deal with what we got. And by the way, there's a trap, and then there's a cornfield. And Angie went out into the cornfield a couple of years ago. Like people maybe don't understand about that crest you're talking about. When you're standing on the track, it kind of, there's a peak way down there, and then the track ends just beyond the peak. So it looks like it's longer than it actually is. And I think that drivers, people I talk to, if you go down there and you realize it and you're preparing for it from the second you hit the stripe, it's a little bit different. Let's talk pro stock before we let you go, and the bikes, of course. I'm thinking about the countdown, right? And pretty exciting. Chris McGahey is holding on to 10th. You got Troy Coughlin 9th. You got Kyle Koretsky 8th. They got a little bit of a gap, but on the outside looking in, Kenny Delco, who has had a quick and fast car. They're making power. Fernando Quadra Jr., boy, wouldn't he love to make the countdown. Val Smealin has made the countdown, but would love to do it again. You've got as many as 15 cars. And now that Richie Stevens is even out there on a regular basis, he won a round. Like, the countdown story is not set by any means in pro stock, and multiple quick and fast cars that make power are going to miss it.
Yeah, that's going to be the wildest one for who ends up in the top 10 and who doesn't. I still think Greg has the best car out there as far as the class goes, but he has been coming up a little short in the results department the last few weeks. But yeah, there's definitely in pro stock, there's so many more cars than spots. And wasn't it just 3 or 4 years ago that everybody was saying, just stick a fork in it. Pro stock's over with. There's nobody racing it. There's nobody that wants to race it. There's no new blood coming into the class. And all of a sudden now it's overpopulated if there's such a thing. So yeah, it's just going to be a matter of most of those cars are fairly evenly matched as far as on a power standpoint. So it's going to come down to, this crew chief makes the right call on race day, and what driver does the right thing with his left foot on race day, which is kind of what pro stock has always been about.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Which is exciting, but Kenny Delco, all those years putting together like a part-time program and then a full-time program, and then had some incidents, a crash, really kind of doubled down, came back immediately. He's got a car that can win races. He's just got to put together a race or two and he'll go flying up the points. It's just a matter of actually doing it. And the same can be said for others. Hey, Edwin's out there, wants to know if you think that the Sarge will ever return to Top Fuel again. Honest opinion. This is Edwin. This is one of the Sarge's super fans. He's always posting about Tony Schumacher. And what's your honest opinion? He wants to know.
I can tell you that Tony would like to very much. It's really just a matter of funding. Tony has done it at a level that he's not gonna step down from that. You know what I mean? Tony doesn't want to run on a tight budget or have to scrimp and save, and he wants to go out there and compete at a championship level, like he's done, and that takes money, and more money than you can compete. You could run a full season in Top Fuel probably for, if you have the truck, trailer, race cars, all that stuff, you could probably run a full season for $1.5 million to $2 million. But the way that they did it with the Army program, with full hospitality, and you got to remember, Tony was all in on that program, from the visits he did to schools to the visits he did to Army bases to the times that he literally, flew all over the world. He'd go to Army bases over Christmas vacation, and he's really looking for another program like that. And I think that's what it would take to get him to come back. When he made the cameo appearances last year, certainly showed that he can still do it behind the wheel. I think he will? I honestly don't know. I know that Tony would very much like to, but he's going to do it on his terms. And hopefully he'll be able to find somebody that'll meet his terms. Everybody seems to forget that a bunch of years ago, I guess now, Prudhomme had some sponsorship cutbacks, and it's like, okay, well, sponsors weren't going to be able to meet his full budget, weren't going to do, and you sit down and look at the numbers and go, okay, yeah, I can do it for that, right? I can cut some corners, I can cut some expenses, I can do that. And Snake said no. He said, that's not the way I want to race. I want to race at a championship level. And he sat out a year and was able to put together a package. I think that's basically what Tony was thinking about. And then, 2020. So, as we emerge from this, Tony's certainly, still young, still marketable. He is a huge name in the sport. It's just going to be a matter of finding the right fit from a sponsor standpoint, somebody that wants to go all in on a program. And, I think that company's out there. It's just going to be a matter of, getting all the players to the same table.
Exactly. I certainly hope not. We mentioned Larry Dixon, we mentioned Tony Schumacher, all the greats, Austin Prock, who is an up and coming other side of the spectrum, right? A young driver who has yet to get his opportunity to do what he wants to do, has yet to do it. Hey, Gary Ewing wants to know if electronic clutch release is allowed in pro stock. Reaction times are a tight factor. And I'm a little shocked that I'm shocked that that's a question almost, but it just goes to show that we have to educate always.
No, electronic clutch release is not allowed in pro stock. It must be a function of the driver's foot.
That's it. But which is why it's great. And that's why we love it. Simple as that. Looking at point standings in Pro Stock Motorcycle, Eddie 10th, Andrew 11th, Jerry 12th. Jimmy Underdahl, who's been, that guy knows how to ride. He is 13th. So a similar situation. There's going to be a fight for that 10th position, which is worth watching. That's why we do this. It's the battle for who's going to make it.
That's really not fair. Pencil the Harleys in. they sat out the first how many races? So, they basically gave everybody a head start, and
Right.
they are going to be in. I don't think there's any question about that. So, take whoever right now is 9 and 10 or 8 and 9 and figure that into the mix. Jerry Savoie, it's like, what is going on over there? They have all the power. They certainly have the funding. They've got, Tim Kalungian is one of the smartest guys in the motorcycle pitch from a crew chief standpoint, and yet they can't put it together. If somebody had told you, here, I love these long odd bets, right?
Yes.
Okay, Joe, January, we're sitting around, or February, right? We're sitting around, we're discussing the season. We're getting, hey, Joe, guess what? By the time we get to the Western Swing, the baddest ass Suzuki on the planet is going to be Steve Johnson.
The indications were there, Alan. I don't know if that's so. Last year, end of last year, Steve was coming. He was working in the right direction. The baddest one on the planet. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have said that. But Steve, they've been moving forward.
But Vance and Hines hadn't unleashed their 4-valve yet.
Yeah.
You knew that Jerry was going to have that power. You kind of figured that Vance and Hines was going to put one out there just out of their own stable. And then you knew that Joey Gladstone and Corey Reed were going to be out there with the 4-valve stuff. And yet, Steve Johnson has got the baddest Suzuki that's out there right now.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to Matt Smith tomorrow to find out the intensity level of that rivalry in that final round. Going to be interesting. Now, you did say pencil. First of all, I want to mention on NHRA.com, it still says Screaming Eagle, Vance and Hines, Harley Davidson, but they're not Harley Davidsons anymore, right? They're just Vance and Hines, pro stock motorcycle. That's right. Exactly. It's a Buell. So that's just a little note to put out there for anybody that's watching. But in front of them, Corey Reed, Karen Stoffer, Angie Smith, Joey Gladstone. So Joey has been flying, right? Like he's
Joey's going to be going up, not down.
Right. Angie, she's on a Matt Smith Racing motorcycle. She won a couple of weeks ago. She, out in Vegas at the end of the year last year, her most recent race win, but still capable of winning. Karen Stoffer, very experienced racer. Like, I don't know, is Karen really going to fall in that queue? And then there's Corey Reed. I guess Corey Reed with the relatively new team. And I don't know how, relatively new we want to call him as a rider, but compared to Eddie and Andrew, he is. So there's a pack of dogs on Corey Reed's tail. And that's going to be the guy that if someone is going to fall out to get Andrew in, maybe it's him.
Well, Andrew's going in. So I don't think that's even up for debate. As far as Karen, I go right back to Jerry Savoie. What's going on over there? They've got everything they need to win races. We know it. We've seen it. Karen's ability is not in question at all. It just seems like the bikes aren't running up to par for whatever reason. And obviously, if I knew what the reason was, I'd call Tim and tell it to him. And if he knew what the reason was, he would fix it. But I think that's one of the biggest surprises, as big probably as the performance that we've seen out of Steve Johnson, is that Jerry has lagged behind so far. And I'm talking about both of his motorcycles.
Exactly. We'll see, though. And again, that's why the countdown exists. Is it going to be Corey Reed that gets bumped out? Is Jerry not going to make it? That's where the drama is. Mark says, Mark Watkins, can you direct me to the local Buell dealership? Yeah, I can't, but I don't think that's what it's about. At that, I don't know. In terms of pro stock motorcycle, why would we even make that comparison? I guess you can't go buy a Buell, or can you? I don't know.
Well, that is body work that is available, that somebody doesn't have to spend $1 billion to go out and develop a new thing for a V-twin. It's available. It's accepted for the V-twins. And so that's what they're using.
Exactly. Billy says, what about rules changes with pro mods, automatics accepted again, and pro stock, factory stock with the Dodge benefits? I can tell you the Dodges got a little pulley. They are trying to tweak, and based on the results out there in Norwalk, you could see that the Cobra Jets are ahead a little bit, but not of all the Chevrolets, because David Barton has got a very quick and fast Chevrolet. So that's to be determined. But what was learned out there was that the Dodges could use a little. And so they gave them a little. We'll see how that goes. What about Pro Mod, the automatics accepted again? I haven't seen that just yet, but I know that a lot of the nitrous cars that have more gears and are pulling gears earlier in a run compared to the supercharged cars are going to be happy about that.
Yeah, I hadn't seen anything on a Pro Mod rules change either, but I assume he's talking about the automatic shifters because the
Yes.
transmissions never changed. Yeah, the automated shifters did. If that's been allowed again, then I think that'll increase participation a little bit. I think that'll certainly help the competitiveness a little bit. One thing is, you know, a number of the guys that drive those things, well, let's just say a guy that has Ricky Smith's experience isn't going to bother as much as a guy who just, has been driving them for 4 or 5 years and has always had the automatic shifter. If you've always had that and it's something you've never had to do, that's going to be a pretty big adjustment when you're driving a car that's that fast. If you started out in something slower and worked your way up and worked your way through, then I think you'd be able to adapt. But when you've got a car that's that powerful and that's that close to the edge of control, I think keeping both hands on the steering wheel is probably not a bad thing if you can do it. So if that is in fact
It is
have been allowed again, then it is.
NHRA Racer. It's up there now.
Okay.
Basically says, Section 6, and it goes down through drivetrain, and they, automated or pneumatic shifting devices permitted on all transmission types must be controlled by preset engine RPM and or timing function, etc.
Okay. Well, then that's good. I think that's good. I think that's going to make the class more competitive. And I think it may get a couple of drivers back, either re-involved or stepping up their commitment a little bit, because it just simply, does it make the cars easier to drive? Yes, but I also think it makes them a little bit safer, a little more stable, and I think it's definitely going to help the competition level also.
And you mentioned Ricky with his customer cars and all. That's part of his business, bringing out a customer car, putting someone in it, and maybe they're a little less experienced than he as one of the greats of all time. But it was explained to me that, the supercharged cars are running 3-speed transmissions and the nitrous cars are running 5-speed transmissions, and that they've got to shift more. And so that puts them at a more and earlier. And so I was walked through a run on that in a nitrous car, and that they're pulling a gear before 60 feet as nitrous kits are coming on, and it's just a different experience than in some of the 3-speed cars where the shift happens much further down the racetrack. And how is that not an advantage for those guys? And we're legislating nitrous cars out of existence, according to this person. And I just took in the information, and here a week later, after hearing about it, we got a rules change. So I guess somebody agreed.
Well, I think it's a case where, some guys went to NHRA and said, hey, look, we understand why you made the rule, kind of the same reason that they took the air shifters out of Pro Stock cars a few years ago. But in this case, it is a different scenario, and it really is damaging to the class. And, one thing that's always going to perk up the NHRA guys' attention is if you talk about safety. And if you talk about how much stuff is going on, and then tell them, do you really want me driving this thing with one hand? I think that, that would be something that would garner some attention. But it sounds like the right decision was made, at least in my opinion. So let's get back to racing.
Absolutely. One final thing before we let you go, unless you've got something you want to mention to the WFO audience, up on NHRA.com. Great story about Luigi Novelli. And just to track that story from where we were a couple of weeks ago to where we are now, NHRA.com, he's on the mend. And to think about what went down, boy, to have the medical response team there, ready to go, ready to fly him out of there, all of those things. When we see Luigi back at the track, it's going to be a great thing. That's just a great story. I suggest everybody check it out.
No, and the NHRA safety team is top notch. There is a doctor on site at the national events all the time. There are always paramedics there. A number of the safety safari team members also have some paramedic training. We have ambulances, we have the helicopter, it's just standard procedure. And in this particular case, when Luigi needed help, all the help he could possibly ask for was there, and everything worked out the way it was supposed to. They got him in a stable condition. They got him on a helicopter. They got him to the local hospital, and he's back, headed back in the right direction. So I think that's good news. And I think, every racer on site, the pro racers all know this because it's basically, part of the ongoing meetings and information exchange with the NHRA. But I don't know how many casual fans understand that, how strong the medical presence is on site at an NHRA national event anytime that we're there. So Luigi needed it, and everything was there, and everybody did what they should have done and came out with a good result. So good news.
Good news. Yeah, great news for Luigi, and we hope to see him again. And, he's the story on NHRA.com gives details to what happened, what went down. I suggest everybody read it. Alan, great job as usual. Have you been voting for Erica every day for the ESPYs?
No.
What? Alan? We're not. She's not going to win the ESPY now because of you, Alan. Now we have an excuse, everybody, because of Reinhart.
Yeah, well, you guys can hate me for this if you want to. I don't believe ESPN will let a drag racer ever win that.
But wait. Okay, yes, you're right. Yes, that is true. Yes. But is she a drag racer or is she a Disney girl? Right on Track, Disney movie. Who owns ESPN? Disney. It's a Disney thing. She's actually the insider on this one, if you want to think of it that way.
All right. I'll start voting for Erica.
Yeah, voting, man. It's all coming together. The Right on Track, the Disney, the ESPN. When they look at it, which is the most self-serving of these? Which one benefits us the most? It's Erica Enders, because we did a Disney movie about her.
Well, when Disney starts a campaign for Erica,
yeah,
then I guess at that point I will think that the NHRA bias from ESPN might be over.
Well, we'll have to see. This is a good way. She's up against Scott Dixon and Lewis Hamilton, and the other.
To tell you the truth, if you look at ESPN the last few years, I'm surprised they even have a motorsports ESPY award. Do they even know it exists?
Oh, I know. No, they don't have much of anything going. Hey, you know what I did see though for the first time Saturday night was the SRX deal. Mm-hmm. At first of all, at Indianapolis Raceway Park, which is an NHRA owned facility and one of the best short tracks in the whole country, and has kind of been lying dormant. And boy, they had a great crowd and they had a great race. And Ernie Francis Jr., who was from Davie, Florida, literally like 7 minutes from here, young South Florida racer, goes out there and whoops them all. Scott Speed was in the mix. Like, that was the first time I got to watch the Tony Evernham series. And I thought, man, it was pretty entertaining. They got a decent little product right there.
Yeah, I read a story online the last day or two where they talked to Ray about, and he says, well, we, came out with the first one and realized we needed to make some tweaks. And, we listened to fan feedback and make some tweaks. But, their whole premise is to, come on the air and race and keep the show within a couple-hour time window and keep a lot of action on the track and try to play the personality side of it as much as they can. And, it looks like their TV ratings get better and better every week. And, the way they're doing it, I think is, I think it's brilliant. They're already talking about what they're going to do next year. And Ray was pretty adamant about, we don't think this is going to be 10 races, 12 races, 15 races. We're going to run our summer series and we want to do this and we'll just make it a fun thing. And the local heroes being involved is a big part of it. And, having the guys not be afraid to push each other around a little bit on the racetrack. And, even though you're not racing for a championship, so to speak, right? You're not racing for $1 billion. But those guys are all still competitors. You put them in a situation, they want to win. And if you're in my way and I'm faster than you, then I need to get you out of my way. And, the fact that they're willing to do a little bit on the track and then they're talking a little smack off the track, I think it's a great recipe. And, they're continuing to learn as they go, but I think that thing definitely got some legs.
Yes, no, I agree. I was an unbiased viewer. There's always things to be learned. And I just can't help but think, like, this Ernie Francis kid has extreme talent and just hasn't been able to work his way into a program just yet. And so they give him the opportunity to be on the track with the current Indy 500 winner and Tony Stewart and many others. And he goes out there and busts them. And that could be the shot that the kid needs to get an opportunity somewhere else. Like, that's it was good entertainment. And ultimately, right, isn't that what it's supposed to be? Good entertainment.
Marcus Lemonis shot him a note on Twitter and asked him if he was looking for a truck ride. Can't hurt.
Well, exactly. And the kid's a mega talent, right? He has been his whole life. Like, down here, we know him, but he's been kind of over there in Trans Am, which has no eyeballs on it. No offense. It's good racing, good cars, cool cars. I would call the races when they would come to Homestead a few times and get my exposure. And the kids from Davie, which is right next to Hollywood, now he's on the map after that. Pretty cool.
Right on.
Great job. Have fun this week in Indianapolis. I'm sure you'll learn a lot. Then this weekend, you're headed out west and then to Bandimere, Denver. The Western Swing begins. Very exciting. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Looking forward to it, Joe.
All right. Thank you. Now go tell that kid. Go get after him. There he goes. Oh, they're gone. The voice of the NHRA, Alan Reinhart, with us here on WFO. Thank you, Alan. There he goes. How about that? Yeah, this guy's got it right. Vote for E. So we made a big deal about the Steve Torrance ESPY Award like 2 years ago in 2019. It was a whole NHRA, everybody, all the media outlets, all the drivers, everybody. In fact, it was the most unified NHRA marketing effort I think I've ever seen. I will go on so far as to say that. Since I have been paying attention to NHRA in the era of social media, the most unified, coordinated effort to accomplish anything was for Steve Torrance to get votes in the ESPY Awards. And he lost. I would love for that kind of effort to be orchestrated at another goal. Like the goal I always think is, getting people to watch the sport is good. That's a good thing to do. And coordination is a big part of it. Like you can have an army and everybody is doing their own thing, and it's not going to work as well as if you are doing maneuvers, flanking, and there's coordination is a very big thing. And so we're not doing that this time with Erica, or at least I haven't seen it, like a coordinated attempt. And who knows, maybe ESPN is against the coordinated attempt. That's part of it too. Like, oh, they're coordinating. Yep, they don't win. It's got to be totally organic. But I'm going to vote for Erica as often as I can go to the link. And someone put the link up in our chat section right now. One of you virtual producers out there, please do that. And let's get Erica some votes. But I really think she's got a good chance for a couple of reasons. One, the Disney thing. She's an insider. They know her at Disney one way or another, somebody. It's like, hey, that's one of our people. And also, two, she's the only lady racer on the ballot. Like Alan says, they're not too into motorsports right now, but that's okay. It's still an award. And I would like to, I'd like to see her get it. She certainly has earned it and deserves it. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, let's see what everybody else has got to say. Put your final comments in the comment section, guys. And speaking of Erica, did a great job on WFO last week. Hopefully you guys have checked it out. Tomorrow, Matt Smith going to be on the show, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Matt Smith tomorrow. Thursday, I don't want to say what I'm thinking, but we had a guest recently that was on and was very popular, and we didn't quite get to the end of it. We had to bail. He wasn't exactly feeling well. I wasn't exactly feeling well. We were all, it didn't get to the end of it. So I'm thinking about going back to that. But in the coming weeks, Bobby Lagana and others going to be on as we're trying to figure out what to do with this whole Steve Torrance situation, right? Like Steve Torrance is going to win 10 races this year. And are we going to have Steve on 10 times? And are we going to mix it up a little bit? So I communicated with Steve, and I think he's forcing Bobby. I mean, he's asked Bobby to do it. Now, Bobby was my idea because there's 1,000 questions to ask Bobby Lagana about the Capco team. All of that. Shout out to the Patreons. We got new Patreons. The VIP listener show, the members club, patreon.com/WFO radio. They got their Monday motivation this week. They're getting everything that they need to get. It's pretty crazy. Also, Total Seal piston rings Friday. Total Seal Hidden Horsepower live. How to not miss it. Go and subscribe on their YouTube channel, Facebook page, or the Hidden Horsepower Facebook group. You will learn so much. I hooked my dad up with the podcast. He's like, how do I get that? I subscribe to the podcast on his phone, and now he'll never miss a Hidden Horsepower. But it's really an exercise of learning about piston rings and why they're so important. Oh, I didn't tell Alan about my mini catastrophe. I'll tell him next time. Marvin Rodak, Rodak'sCoffeeandGrills.com. Hot sauces and spice rubs and everything great. They sell grills. They sell Primo grills, which is a ceramic grill that's better than the other mainstream one that you hear about all the time. That's green. No, I talked to Marvin all about it, guys, down there in Fort Worth. You know me, I'm all about like knowing what's up. And he gave me the whole rundown about Primo grills he sells and what's the story. And they've got a divider built in. It's like the McDLT of grills where the hot side stays hot and the cool side stays cool. Nobody gets the McDLT reference. I'm going to keep going with it, though, forever. Just know. Samtech.edu, the School of Automotive Machinists and Technology. Blockhead, CNC programs, motorsport, EFI tuning. Let's say you want to work in aerospace. Let's say you want to get a job at SpaceX. If you're a Samtech graduate and you know how to work on CNC machines and program them and make it happen and run them, you are going to be in a much better position than the average guy knocking on the door, unless he's like from MIT. That's a different deal. Go to samtech.edu. Frank Hawley's Drag Racing School, the Dragster Adventure. Love the story about Autumn Height. Love that story because, frankly, Autumn is the next generation of drag racers, right? Like Robert's daughter. She's been out there for a long time. She has been trying really hard to, been a kind of a fixture out there for a while, and now is going through the classes. You got to love that. And there's a great story about it that, Robert sat in on a couple of the courses and Frank's lectures, if you will, and it turned out really good. So great. Congratulations to Autumn on getting her license in Super Comp. We'll see her out there. But what about you? Drive a dragster. Do it this year. Celebrate the post-pandemic universe by going to Frank Hawley's. I like it. And that brings me to the folks at Nitro Fish. Thank you so much for our WFO radio gear. And you can check out the WFO store. So let's get into some business real quick. The WFO store. Am I really going to shut it down? I'm not really going to shut it down. But I did learn recently, like all the busy work associated with fulfillment. Like, I ordered a thing. Did you send my thing? I sent the thing. Oh, you didn't send the thing. Oh, PayPal. Oh, they didn't send the thing. Oh, PayPal is attacking me now. And it's like, why am I going through any of this? Why am I going through any of this? Right. And so that's the reason I shut the gear down the first time, was all the little associated problems that aren't even problems, right? They're just oversights and, BS. And so I'm going to have to come up with a different way again. So this is the second time I've learned this lesson. The next time I go down the road of trying to ship out gear, like WFO hats and WFO shirts and all that stuff, next time I go through that, please someone remind me. There's a mistake. Don't do it, Joe. Get a service to do it. And so that's what I'm worrying about right now. My own personal car, went over to my dad's house and sat in the garage and got under the car and started looking at some things and the rear main seal and the oil pan gasket, and decided to drain the oil. And, there's water in the oil and it's not right. This is not the right situation. So we're pulling the engine. That's it. That's the new plan for the 1978 Pontiac Trans Am, which you'd think I would have more photographs of my own car available to show everyone on our own thing. Here's one. But now we are in a new spot. Drain the oil, drain the water, pulling it apart slowly. Going to bring it to our engine guy and do at very least, a go-through inspection and reseal it all up and go back at it again. And if it needs rings and bearings, it's going to get rings and bearings. We're going to start fresh. Operation Fresh Start on the 1978 Trans Am. But, whenever you do that, sometimes you make changes. And that's it. That's it. The version of the car that was the version from 1999 to 2021 is now over. Engine is going to come out. We're going to fix and replace and rebuild. And we're obviously on a time schedule. And maybe this will be the version that goes out there and actually runs Super Street at an NHRA divisional event. I'm excited about it. It was tough because I wanted my own, I wanted to prove something to myself. But if I'm going to damage the car, I've got an engine that's not blown up. That's a good thing. If I'm going to damage the car to prove a point to myself, there's some sort of head gasket leak inside, like something. It's been 21 years this thing has been together. It's time to come apart. That's it. So I'm making what I think to be the right decision. Encourage everybody to follow on the gram and on Twitter, WFO Joe. Good stuff there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. It's an audio-only podcast. And that's where you get Ignition. Ignition is audio only. We did the Ignition show from a remote location in Miami this past week. Kind of cool. The YouTube channel, we're above 1,000. We're growing all the time. That's where the Flying Ryan thing was going to be, right? And we're going to do it, Joe versus Pro, at some point. and get your 10th anniversary t-shirt at nitrofishracing.com. And to everybody who is wondering about the big Flying Ryan race, first of all, how about Mrs. Laura Ayler putting this together? These two promos, man, did a great job. Tim Haley did the the photography in the lanes, and they put together the deal, but now it's postponed. This one I don't like so much. I should have had my eyes on the competition. Miyagi say, always look eye. But this is what we're dealing with, folks. This was taken as of the start of the show. And you see the little pin right next to Fort Lauderdale. That's where the WFO radio studios are located. So we're getting bands of weather. It's not terrible. It's gray and cloudy and gross. But where the track is right here in the pink by Tampa. So not a good idea to encourage anybody to go there, to go to that. Now, inevitably, it'll go through, and Wednesday will be a beautiful day. But Ryan and I are going to race at some point. And yes, he does own both cars, and he knows them well and intimately. And so I'm going to have to negotiate, pick a car, or I don't know. I'm going to have to try to make it as fair as possible. I'll do my best. And even if I take a whooping, right, it'll be fun. It'll be to build awareness around drag racing, but be ready to go. All right, let's see what everybody says. Remember, Matt Smith tomorrow. Really crappy in Tampa at the moment, says Dale. Yeah, judging by this, it's going to get crappier, Dale. So batten down the hatches, and even Category 1, if it's Category 1 when it gets to you, take it seriously. Us Floridians, we know that it's no joke. We all need a refresh. Exactly. Now you're talking super street. Well, that's what I would like to do. That's what I've always liked, the idea to go super street racing. And now technology has kind of caught up to my situation, and I can do it. I just got to do it. Is it mixed? The oil in the water? Yeah, it's kind of a gross slurry of green goo. Looking forward to Friday night, Joe. So Friday night, too bad we don't know who this is. But I'm going on a couple of different shows in the next few weeks. Jerron referenced it a little earlier. He's got a sportsman show that he's helping out, Lucas Oil Series Racers, and also going on a show out of Texas where I will be a guest. So watch my own Twitter feed, and I'll tell you where to go. And you can see other people ask me questions, which is something I really like, being a guest on other people's shows. So when I get invited, I always do it. But, they just don't know what's going to happen. What's this? No, don't shut it down. What, the WFO store? I'm not going to shut it down, but I'm going to find a better way. That I just can't, you can't do everything, right? You just can't do everything. And it's just not possible. How about the packaging for the McDLT? A lot of styrofoam. Yeah, well, that was the whole deal, the styrofoam McDLT. And the hot side was hot and the cool side was cool. I'm not saying every idea that comes out of McDonald's or corporate America is a good one, but everybody that remembers the McDLT seems to remember it fondly. Look at the McRib people. Everybody loves McRib. I don't love McRib. If anyone hasn't tried Rodex yet, do it or else. No, try it. It's awesome stuff. Yeah, the Rodex deal, Jeff, what are we going to do, right? They think it's just regular coffee, except it's not. It's a whole extra sensory experience. Another great show, guys, says Jim. Scott has placed the link to vote for Erica. I agree. Vote for Erica, guys. She needs to get votes. See, I believe in all of these things. Somebody is counting the metrics. Even in the failed Steve Torrance for SB award, somebody said, wow, they got a lot of votes. Hopefully we did. Jeff Shockley, Lagana Strong. Yes. For the mystery guest stories. Great show. Kepner. Okay. I want to get Kepner back on the show. We didn't get the full Kepner effect because he and I ended up just having a conversation that you guys were privy to, which tends to happen from time to time, a conversation. If she's against Lewis Hamilton, she isn't going to win because F1 is way more popular. F1 is definitely way more popular, and it airs on ESPN, which is, and probably Lewis also deserves it because he tied Michael Schumacher and everything. But vote for Erica anyway. No quitting this. You can vote multiple times. Brian Brewster, how about EE taking down Greg in the final? Pretty sure I called that. Did you not see Erica on WFO last week? Did you not see the conversation with Erica? It's going to be Greg and Erica. Since we're talking about our predictions, Brian, and I agree with you, I've been saying it's going to be Greg and Erica all year long. all year long. And then Dallas and then Hartford and a couple other guys got into the mix and said, oh, no, we're here too. And I think Kid Chaos is going to get in on it. And is Troy Coughlin going to get going at some point? And Aaron Stanfield got in on the mix. Like, there's good cars out there, but they are the best with the most experience. And Greg Anderson. What can you say? I'm not going to say anything neg about Greg, because the guy is up against a milestone. And when Rampy was up against a milestone and Fletcher was up against a milestone and whoever's up against the milestone, it's hard. It becomes very challenging for all these extra reasons. He's going to get it. Like, who wants to bet that Greg won't win another race for the rest of the year? Like, the odds against that. Now, it could happen. Greg's out there. No, Joe, don't do that. But speaking of long odds bets, like, who's ready to take the action? What's the number? 100 to 1, $10 bets. You say Greg wins no races for the remainder of the year. And I say he wins at least a race, a national event. Is 100 to 1? Are people taking that? Like, I don't know. Can I cover that? I could cover a couple. Is this even legal what I'm doing? Is this bookmaking? I don't think it's a good idea for me to continue. But who would bet that? I think we all know Greg's going to get a win. It's just a matter of, will they let him? Like, who's going to yield? Who's going to give up that home run that ties the record? Nobody wants to be that guy, except for Erica. She says, I don't mind being the person if it happens naturally, because I raced this guy enough to know that he's great. It's going to be fun, though. Jay says, great Joe and Alan. Yeah, I think ESPN is done with drag racing. Yeah, probably. But doesn't matter, though. Or until the next time. Like, Fox, I think, is enjoying their drag racing experience. Right? And the whole television, everything is down. Everybody knows that. Ratings for everything is down because of the cord cutting and the fractured. And there's a lot of people. I got a guy, get this, buddy of mine, and we'll part on this. He keeps up with NHRA drag racing. He knows everything that's going on. Does not watch any of it. Watches nothing. Does not watch WFO. Does not watch Fox. Does not watch NHRA.TV. How does he keep up with the sport? I'll let you simmer on that while I tell you about Jeff. Says Greg is for sure going to win one more. You'd think, right? Hasn't happened that. I think Stanfield going to end up in second. Very possible. Great program as always. Lonnie, thank you. You're the man. Okay, Dragster Jeff, you guys have been having this separate conversation of CC class bikes. Like, save it for Matt Smith tomorrow, guys. That's why I'm not starting a conversation with Reinhart that you don't know. Let's get Matt Smith in on this. That's the right time to have the conversation. It's the best, hands down. Talking about road acts. I'll be sneaking into Showtime before the race to prep that car. Dale talking about Dale, please don't give up the secrets, man. On the Spot with Dave Rogers is the show that I'm going on. Too bad Facebook user doesn't have his name up there, but that's the show that I'm going on there. Jerron has got me on another show. Class Racer Nationals at Numidia in Pennsylvania, July 31st. If you did class racing, be up there, says Gary. Gary, how did you not know the Pro Stock's not allowed to use electronic clutch release? Come on. Look at that car in your picture. They're ready. Everyone's ready for the hurricane coming through. NHRA ratings have been up this year. NHRA ratings have been up this year. That's good. No, NHRA has always been like a die-hard bunch. You're going to get the numbers if you give them what they like and what they want. You're going to get X. Now, is that big compared to the NFL or compared to like the Masked Singer? No, but I'm liking our television show right now. The first thing I did when I got back from Norwalk was put on the show and watch their interpretation of what I just saw. And it was great. It was great. Now, there are always things, but they're doing a great job. Brian Loans has evolved so much. So Brian, he says, like, do you watch? I was like, no, man, I don't watch, but I watch. Just don't watch every single one of them. But Brian Loans has evolved so much in the 2-3 years he's been doing it now. 3 years. This is the start of his third year. Now halfway through. He's evolved so much. There's just only so much that can happen. So many interviews you can get. Like, I would have liked to have heard from Brittany before the final round, like not just her winner interview on the top end with Amanda, but, like, okay, now to the pits. And there's only so many resources. I think they're doing a great job. Simple as that. Let's see. Storm making landfall in my area. Not worried. Yeah. Why would you say such a thing, though? Like, see, me, I think it's the Italian background. The Italian thing. You'll hear this. People like superstition is maybe a little stronger with the Italian folk. And so me coming up, like, why would you say such a thing? Tempt fate. Because, there's a tree branch flying through the air somewhere. It's looking for some place to land. And the cosmic forces that I always talk about, things that you don't understand. Some think it's, God's doing it. And then some people think it's, Satan is doing it. And some people think it's just a random occurrence. And some of us think, like, I don't know what it is that makes that tree branch fly through your window and hit you on the head. But it happens. Planes fall out of the sky onto people's heads. Why them, Steve? Did they just say something silly right in advance? Maybe they did. Why would you say that? I'm not worried. There's a lot of people not worried about coronavirus. I'm not worried about that. 600,000. Some of that 600,000 were the exact people that I'm not worried. Why would you say it? Why would you put it out there? Why would you try to catch the ear of the, whatever they are, the superstitions, whatever makes that happen? Why would you do that, Steve? So I hope to see you next week, Steve. I hope you make it. I hope you do. And on that note, we're gone. Thanks to Alan Reinhart. Thanks to those screaming kids in the background for giving a little character. I always love some screaming kids in the background. It's one of my favorite things. No, listen, I love, other people's children, the well-behaved ones. They're great. And Reinhart. He's like, oh, they were just cooped up on a plane for a long time and are happy to be off. Like, yeah, that's so nice. Monica knows. Famous last words. Right? I'm not worried about anything. Oops. What's going to happen is going to happen whether I worry or not. Yeah, okay. Maybe. That's definitely one of the attitudes that's out there. There are people that have attitudes. Ways to handle the unknown. And that's one of them. That's not mine. I prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and, try to have a good time along the way. Generally a positive, optimistic outlook. But I don't challenge a storm. I'm not shaking my fist at my nature. Go do it, Steve. Go out there. You got an Instagram. Everybody will follow. Go out in front of your house and never mind. I'm not going to say that because it'll happen to you and it'll be my fault. Hopefully everybody had a good show. Remember, Matt Smith tomorrow. All your 600cc, no wheelie bar motorcycle questions for Matt Smith tomorrow. We're going to talk about the Steve Johnson-Matt Smith rivalry. And we'll ask Matt what he thought of Angie's victorious run in the ice cream eating contest. If Andrew's definitely going into the top 10, who's definitely going out of the top 10? That's interesting. There's a lot of interesting stuff coming up here on WFO. Big thanks to Flying Ryan Ayler for the invite. Sorry it's postponed. Everybody stay safe, of course. And remember, our archive is loaded. You got Cruz Pedregon, you got Erica, you got all kinds of good stuff going on. Big thanks to Alan Reinhart and all of our sponsors. And remember, the Ignition podcast, it's a little weird, but it's in the archive. WFO.